Hello everybody, welcome to the county seat. We are taking a little different track today. We're going to spend a half hour with Dr. Laura Nelson, who's the Executive Director of the Governor's Office of Energy Development, and talk about energy. This is a big topic in Utah. It always has been because we are one of the richest energy states in the entire country. Dr. Nelson, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Appreciate it.
Chad, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'd like to take a little bit of time and just ask you how you think what our role is in the national and global energy picture.
Sure. I think it is an important perspective because a lot of times people are just thinking about what's happening at a local level and why do we need this production. Sure, we're supporting jobs in those sectors, but shouldn't those economies diversify? Well, resources are located where resources are located, whether you're talking about wind or solar or coal. There are good places to do solar, there are good places to do wind, and there are good places to produce coal. And Utah happens to be one of those places where it's good to produce coal. We have a high BTU content, low sulfur coal. So just in looking at burning coal, Utah's coal really is a prime product. So when we talk about the use of that coal, we do use most of it in state. About 90% of the coal that we produce in state we actually use in the state, but there's also potential for export. We could produce more, but there are some restrictions on our ability to produce more, which I think is very unfortunate because when we look at, I think, the national picture and the global picture, electricity is fundamental to the bottom line for the quality of life that we live. It has been the driver of modernization. And the U.S. has, I think, been very fortunate to have a variety of resources: coal, natural gas. We've seen a huge boom in natural gas, nuclear, which we didn't even have in the 1950s, and some new renewable resources. But as part of the overall mix, fossil fuels still take up the majority of the production and provide us with the electricity that we have today in the U.S. And as the rest of the world looks to achieve the same quality of life that we have today, just take India, for example. India is really, in terms of its modernization, looking for increasing manufacturing opportunities. So as they look to increase their manufacturing, that is absolutely going to mean an increased demand in electricity use. And if you just take the coal picture for India, I believe that their coal consumption in terms of electricity is up close to 12%, and their production is up over 6%, about 6.5%. So people want to focus on the fact that China's demand is declining, but it's still fairly robust. We're seeing some changes there. But Southeast Asia, India, Vietnam, there's still going to be growth in consumption of coal as we see economies changing worldwide to have the same level of and standard of living that we have today.
There's been quite a bit of controversy over the fact that Utah was trying to develop a coal exporting resource or facility in Oakland, California, and it has been highly criticized. Is that criticism a valid criticism when there's so much global demand for the coal? I mean, where are they going to get it if they don't get it from us? I guess that's the short question.
Well, overall, that's a great question because overall, global exports of coal are actually up. There are definitely other places in the world that have coal, but the U.S., Utah, for one, Wyoming, also, East Coast, or I guess we'll call it East Coast, Virginia and West Virginia. So the U.S. has solid coal reserves. Kentucky, don't want to leave out Kentucky. But I think the thing I like about Utah is I think that we can set an example and a standard, not that other people aren't doing it right, but we do continue to learn about best practices around exporting all of our commodities. And I think as we look towards providing access for Utah coal to those international markets, that we will, just as we have in our coal production, we have the most efficient plants, among the most efficient plants in the country, the top 3. Just as we've been very efficient in our production, we're going to be very efficient and environmentally sensitive in the way that we move and export that coal. And if you look at markets, I think that the indications are that we're going to continue to see a fairly robust future for coal. Is it going to be down in times? Yes, that is the nature of all commodities.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick commercial break. I do have a question I want to ask you about our coal versus somebody else's when we come back here on the County Seat.
There is a place where looking out means looking in, where an impression lasting only a few seconds will be imprinted on a life forever, where courage is forged and innocence rediscovered, where remembering is rewarding and forgetting unforgettable. There is a place where truth is felt and where seeing is believing. There is a place.
Shopping in Davis County has never been better. Experience Station Park, Northern Utah's premier gathering place for shopping, dining, and entertainment. With over 100 shops, Station Park is something for the whole family. Or explore the shopping possibilities this season under one roof at the Layton Hills Mall. Both are conveniently located north of downtown Salt Lake, just off I-15. Come take advantage of special discounts and a wide selection of stores. Visit playindavis.com for more info.
The Utah Farm Bureau has always been there to fight for the needs of its members. With discount programs on items ranging from vehicles and ATVs to health and wellness. The membership fees aren't big, but the results are. We've been around since 1916, and we're not leaving anytime soon. Utah Farm Bureau. We work for those who work to feed the world.
Welcome back to the County Seat. We're talking with Dr. Laura Nelson, and we're talking about coal energy today, amongst other things. We're talking about generally, energy in general. So you talked about how clean Utah coal is and the fact that there is global demand, and there are a lot of people who are trying to block coal from being shipped out because they want to block coal from being burned, period. But the demand's still there. Is the world better off burning our coal than somebody else's?
Well, I think Utah has great quality coal, and absolutely, to the extent that we can displace coals that aren't as high quality, and it isn't that those coals shouldn't even be used. I mean, we have some small deposits of lignite here in Utah, but there are processes being developed that can actually convert that lignite into other commodities like gas and even metallurgical coal. And that's one thing that we often don't talk about is coking coal, which is used in steel production. The growth in demand for that is actually on the uptick. So it's really about how we use the resources. If you're going to burn coal in a power plant for electricity generation, then you look to use the cleanest, highest BTU, lowest sulfur content coal that you can, because you're just going to get more efficient output and lower emissions. But you have to couple with that, I think, the technology that you use. And one of the things I've always said, and I believe it to be the case, is when we restrict export of our coal and the use of coal, we're also restricting the use of new technologies, because we can be a leader in providing those new, best, advanced coal technologies to the rest of the world. And so not only will we provide them with a cleaner resource, we can provide them with cleaner technologies too. And to the extent that we limit their access to both our cleaner coal and force them to use lower quality coal, and we limit access to our technology, in some ways we're simply just exacerbating a global problem rather than improving it.
If we were just to shut coal off and say, no more, it doesn't go out, how far back would our standard of living go, and how quickly?
Well, if you consider that coal production just in the electricity space today is close to 40% of our electricity mix, and that since 1950, the use of, let's just take solar for instance, has increased by 0.4, it's now gone from 0 in like 1950 roughly to 0.4% of our energy mix today. And you think that we're going to make up 40% of coal with renewable resources when you've got geothermal, which is a fabulous resource, still looking to develop that, still only 0.4% of our resource mix. Solar, 0.4% of our resource mix. You know, wind is doing a little better, about 5%. But just take all of those renewables, non-hydro renewables, roughly 6%. And we have this vision, and it's espoused a lot, and I don't mean this in, you know, an adversarial way at all, but the Elon Musk vision that we're going to turn it all off tomorrow and move towards this renewable, particularly solar energy future, I think is very misleading. And I think that it puts people on a path to making decisions or proclamations that are really inconsistent with the energy mix that we have today and with the standard of living we have.
Yeah, would it set us back 50 years, 100 years in our standard of living?
Well, you know,
it's a tough question.
It is a really tough question, but you know, let's just look at the inequalities that exist in some parts of the world. You know, it's hard, you don't want to pick out specific societies, but India for a long time, right, has really struggled with greater equality in its society. And I think that their path towards creating a better, more equal society among its people is to have more economic opportunity. Well, what's the driver of economic opportunity? It's manufacturing, it's industry. And if you're going to move towards a more manufacturing and industrial society so that you can provide jobs, you're going to need electricity. And so I kind of just go to that example that, you know, if we took coal out of the picture today, I think we would be setting ourselves back, not just in terms of what we produce, because you know we've moved to, you know, still more and more services, maybe less manufacturing, but we would be really turning the lights out on much of the progress we've made with regard to women's rights, with regards to rights across classes of people, and just I think overall environmental enhancements. So I think that it's an imperative that we recognize that our full resource mix is critical to all of those social and socioeconomic decisions we make.
How much of the world goes to bed, hits nighttime, and has no lights?
It's about 25%. 25% of the world today has limited or no access to electricity. And I you know, go to my point that, you know, modernization as we experience it today is unimaginable without electricity. The first thing we do when we get home, if it's dark, we turn on the lights. We walk into our businesses and we expect the power to be there to fuel machinery. We expect to be able to get into our car and drive our car. And so that's critical. It's critical to the way that we live, and I fundamentally believe that access is critical to eliminating poverty.
The standard thought is that coal has, that we're at the end game, and that what we produce out of the smokestack today is as good as it gets. Do you agree with that statement?
I don't. You know, one of the things that's happened in the last decade or so is that we've kind of put certain resources in favor, predominantly renewable resources, and I am very supportive of a diverse energy mix, and I think maybe we needed those incentives to diversify our portfolio, and I think that that makes it more robust. But at the same time, we decided that we would identify the losers. And coal has been, I guess I would put it in that category of losers, because we think we shouldn't do more coal. So at the same time that we've been advancing these renewable resources and technologies, we've really taken our foot off the gas pedal to look at more innovative coal. But I'll tell you one thing I know for sure, working in the Governor's Office of Energy Development, is many in our research institutions and our private sector are still looking at those enhancements, and I think we're going to see some coming online in the not too distant future to continue that technological progress that I think that we as a nation and certainly as a state continue to pursue.
Okay, very good. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back. We're going to shift our conversation to oil and gas here on the county seat when we come back.
Kanab, base camp for your southern Utah adventures. You belong in Kanab.
There's a little place on a Utah map where I was raised, where my heart's at, where the sagebrush grows wild and high, and the stars come out at night. Oh, there ain't nothing like being raised in the basin with a Ute reservation, skiing starvation, that Duchesne County life.
What do you picture when you hear Rich County, Utah? Bear Lake adventure, snowmobile action, pristine skiing, spectacular solitude. Well, if that isn't what first came to mind, then you just don't know Rich County. The Bear Lake Monster Polar Plunge, snowmobiling Monte Cristo, ice fishing Bear Lake, skiing the backcountry, fishing at the Cisco Disco. Come and find out what you never knew you were missing. Rich County, Utah.
Beautiful scene, isn't it? The great wide spaces of the wild, wild west. Hi, I'm Chad Booth, host of At Your Leisure. I'm asking you to support the Blue Ribbon Coalition. Their efforts responsibly preserve access to our public lands. If it were not for the Blue Ribbon Coalition and their efforts, you may not have access to millions of acres of land across the West. This is America's playground, and if we don't do anything, we are going to lose it. Join, participate, and donate. Welcome back to the county seat. We are talking with Dr. Laura Nelson, and we are we've kind of run the gamut on coal, although we could probably spend a whole hour talking about it. I would like to talk about the fact that the governor actually came up with a very comprehensive energy plan a few years ago. It's fairly thick. It's like 60, 70 pages about how we should execute that. Would you talk about that for a little bit? Oh,
absolutely. I'd love to. I'm very proud of that plan. One thing I suspect people don't realize is that the state of Utah has an energy policy on the books, and it is a very balanced, thoughtful policy, and it looks to promote all of our energy resources in the state. And the governor said, you know, we have a policy, but we also need to have a plan. How are you going to implement that policy? So when he came into office in 2010, he brought together a group of stakeholders to help identify the critical items needed for Utah's energy future and to lay out a path forward. He took that out to all 29 counties and got input from a variety of stakeholders, and it is, you know, I view it, it's the governor's energy plan, but it really is the state's energy plan, and it includes all resources and how we advance the development and use of all of those energy resources in our state.
So I'd like to ask a question because you have an actually a great resume in energy beyond just your policy job here with the state. If you had a magic wand that you could wave to stabilize oil and gas because they fluctuate as a commodity, what would that magic wand have in it?
Oh my, that's that's a challenging question. You know, I think that market forces are what they are, and we're going to continue to see times when economies overall are strong and booming, and that's going to require continued use of all of our resources, so we'll see upward pressure on commodity prices generally. But I think that the greatest thing that we could do is really recognize that these are important commodities to production, to the quality of life, and that we continue to identify new opportunities as we advance. I think social structures globally and the role that energy plays in those social structures, and we continue to make these resources available. I think concern over policy is just as detrimental to the production and value of these resources as other market pressures are.
So help me understand how you would culturally change that. I mean, that sounds good on paper, but sure. How would you make this a more stable?
Well, I think that when it comes to policy, that we need a rational policy landscape that allows for reasonable access to our resources and doesn't seek to pick winners and losers in the energy space.
Okay, so the policy needs to be more even-handed. And that kind of led me to a question. The conversation has been several times about, well, in oil and gas, if you're on state land, you can get a permit in 45 days, and if it's through the BLM, it's over 2 years. What's the difference?
Well, I think that the federal government's process is fairly bureaucratic and fairly challenging because it does allow input from a lot of parties that I think have a vested interest in distracting from the need to produce those resources. And what their motivations are, I don't want to maybe conjecture about that, but I will say that the process becomes very cumbersome because it doesn't focus on the real need for those resources, the real opportunity and the value that that brings through revenues, through enhanced quality of life, and overall viability and security for our country.
Those detractors would say that because you can get a permit to drill in 45 days in the state of Utah, that it's not as safe, and that the environment is in jeopardy. Is that true?
Absolutely not. We have a phenomenal record in the state around safety. We've been doing hydraulic fracturing in the state for decades with not one instance of safety concern or issue.
So the state is, the Oil and Energy Office is equally capable of handling the commodity in a safe manner as the federal government?
Absolutely. The rules are in place, they're understood, they're known, and they're enforced.
Okay, excellent. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with a wrap-up with Dr. Nelson here on the county seat. We'll see you in just a minute.
What would you do with an extra day in Utah Valley? Explore the Wasatch Mountains? Snap a family photo at Bridal Veil Falls. Cool off on Utah Lake or the Provo River. No matter what you're searching for, you can find it in Utah Valley. Bring everyone together.
149 million years in the making, dinosaurs once roamed this land. Now they're found at the Dinosaur National Monument. Let's take you beyond the bones. We call it Dinosaur Land. You'll find it offers adventures and sights not seen anywhere else in the world. Come to Dinosaur Land, Vernal, Utah. You'll want to stay forever. The dinosaurs did.
If you are looking for the center of the universe, good luck. But if you are looking for the center of the off-road universe, look no farther than Paiute County. Hundreds of miles of trails turn your day of riding into a week, a month, heck, a lifetime wouldn't be enough. Explore one of the most famous trail systems in the world, the Paiute Trail. Go rafting on the Sevier River or go boating and fishing at Otter Creek and Paiute Reservoir. Explore Paiute County and discover the magic and beauty of the land where the rainbow ends.
ATV? Check. Four-wheel driving? Check. Bouldering? Check. Mountain biking? Check. Hiking? Check. River rafting? Check. Adventure is about more than just crossing activities off of a list, but hey, If you can find a place that gives you everything you're looking for, all the better. In Emery County, you'll find the San Rafael swell, trails, lakes, and the small-town hospitality you're looking for. San Rafael Country, in the heart of Utah. Visit us and check something off your list.
Welcome back to the county seat. We have been talking about energy today with our energy czar for the state. I got a question that I'd like to relate it back to the counties. We've talked globally, but energy starts in Utah's 29 counties, or in some of those counties in different ways. What's your thought on the ground level?
My thought is, first of all, I want to express appreciation for those counties that participate in Utah's energy security and also energy security in the region, which I think feeds out across the nation and ultimately to what we can realize globally. So my first remark is to just say thank you. And if you look specifically at our coal communities, they've really provided a very dedicated and committed approach to producing coal and making that available to Utah and where possible for export.
If you had a vision that you could share for coal down the road, what would it be?
Well, you know, people want to talk about dirty coal and they want to talk about clean coal, and I like to talk about new coal because there are new opportunities for coal across the landscape. Whether you're talking about using coal, coking coal in manufacturing and production, or you're talking about coal and electricity, I think we're going to continue to see innovation. I think that the drive within that space is still there, and I think we're going to see new coal technologies coming forward.
You mentioned something about co-burning.
Oh, sure. One of the things that I think is really innovative is looking at co-firing or blending coal with biomass products so that you actually can reduce emissions specifically from coal and get it closer to something that might be consistent with a natural gas fired plant, for example, or even lower. So those opportunities are going to be there. I think if we really get focused on carbon capture and sequestration again as a society, that can come online. But we just need to be, I think, more committed into delivering a fulsome portfolio of technologies and resources.
So to be clear, the emission, most of the emissions that the sulfur has basically been contained, the particulates have been contained. We're now down to just carbon dioxide as a byproduct of coal, which basically is what you and I breathe out. Is that not correct?
Sure.
So are we going to find a way, do you think, that there's a path out of the carbon sequestration? I mean, that sounds like you got to put it in prison and maintain it. So,
well, you know, I think greenhouse gas reduction, as a goal, is important because I think we just need to be as efficient as we can. If we can manage emissions across the board, then that's not. I think it's not a bad goal. It's a fine goal, but we ought to be realistic that it isn't just going to be by eliminating one resource, that we can have improvements in that resource, and every single energy that we use, whether it's wind, whether it's solar, involves mining and extraction that has a greenhouse gas footprint. So you can't, again, just look to pick the winners and losers. You need to have a wholesome, complete portfolio of options available.
Dr. Nelson, thank you so much for taking the time with us. Thank you for joining us here on the county seat. Remember, local government is where your life happens. Be involved, be part of the process, share this with your friends, and we'll see you next week. If you'd like to share this video with your friends, well, you do that right here. If you would like to subscribe to our YouTube channel, you do that over here. If you'd like to interact with us on the county seat, that happens over here. If you want to watch the next episode of the county seat, you can catch it Saturday night at 11 or Sunday morning at 8:30 on ABC4 Good for Utah.